Hello and welcome back. Just getting the phone set up on the stand, really balancing it. So it might be a bit wonky, but I think that's a bit better. So I found a spot just here, just where it drops down at the side of the river. You can hear the lovely sound of the river. You can also see, probably, some bricks at the other side of the riverbank, lining the bank, like there's almost a wall. So let's see how that looks. Oh, yeah. Not too bad actually, is it? Yeah, not too bad there. So I decided on this spot. Some nice earth here. Like I said, I've got plenty of water to do my cup of tea. Now, when you joined me in my last location, I was just looking because I saw something green on the camera. It's that bush behind me. When you joined me at the last location, I went up the top of that hill and I was saying about, oh, the birch is lovely and there's some dry twigs. There's lots of dry twigs. So I collected a good handful and I think there's enough here to make a cup of tea. So that's what I'm going to do now. I was going to bring out my son's twig stove, which is the stove that I used to use. I gave it to him because today I was going to find a different spot where I could make a little pot hanger and put my kettle on it. And I think today I'll just sit my kettle next to the fire. So my kettle. But before I proceed to that, I've got my tinder pouch. I'll make these, I do sell these. I have got a few left, but now that we've moved, I will start producing them again. Now, something I took with me before we left the old house, because I no longer have the log burner anymore. We've got a gas fire, which we won't be using because the gas man came last night and told us it's too expensive. What it was, he came last night because we had a leak on a radiator underneath where it's a drain. So what I take from the last house is all the birch bark, lots and lots of birch bark. There's peelings here ready, you know, that I might use to get this fire going. There's thicker birch bark as well, which I've used for scraping, and especially something like this, which is really thick. This would be good for making your pots with, or if you had enough on it, a canoe. But being the type of person I could see the homeowners were going to be, they might not even use the log burner, and if they do, they'd probably just be like matches and firelighter and paper. They wouldn't be using birch bark. So I thought, rather than this get thrown away, I'll just bring it with me and I'll use it. Oh. With this paper birch that I've already got here that I've just pulled out, I can probably just drop a spark into that and put my twigs on. So I've got some more of this paper birch here. So we'll give that a try. When I say I'll give that a try, I know it's going to work. If you're new to bushcraft, don't stress about the ways to make fire and getting it done first time. That will come to you the more you get out there and practice. Like using this ferro rod, it's been in here with coal fungus and other things like that, so it's got covered. So you're not going to see me like this and strike first time with it. Same as the magnesium, that's gone all dirty. So it will take a couple of strikes with your ferro rod. The people that you see going out there and it's one stripe, and it's all prepared. As you know, I've got no editing, so what you see is real time. I don't cut anything of my films. I've also got in here my Bushcraft Tools fire piston, but I've already got the paper birch ready to go. So I did debate on bringing the flint and steel kit out of me today, but then I thought, well, how much do I need? How much stuff do I need to carry? And bushcraft is about knowledge. So the more knowledge you carry, the less physical stuff you have to carry. I don't have to carry a ferro rod. I could go out today and make a bow drill. But I don't have to. I know how to, and I do practice that skill. But it's having a choice. Once you've got the knowledge and you've got the skill set, you can choose what you want to do each day. But bring enough with you, if it's a wet day, that you know you're going to get a fire going. You don't have to be all survival and trying to collect something on a wet day to make a fire. Practice that while you're out there, but bring something with you so you can get a fire going. Today it's not as important. I'm not far away from home and I'm only having a cup of tea. But if I was going camping on a day like today in Derbyshire at my permission, even though I can hop back down to the car, I still want to stay out there because it's an opportunity I don't get very often to go. So I want to be prepared that if things are wet out there, I can still make a fire and I can still get things dry. So let's get this fire lit. So I've got the fire going, no problem. I say it took a few strikes because the rod's dirty, and obviously I weren't holding the ferro rod right up to the birch bark. There's different techniques with the ferro rod. As simple as it is, people like to use 2 different techniques. But there's actually 3. But we'll talk about those another day. I'm going to get my kettle set up next and just place it next to the fire. I'll raise it on some wood, some branches like this, so that it's not sat on the cold ground, because the cold ground will take the heat out the bottom of the kettle because I'm not sitting it on the fire. And really, I've actually placed the sticks the wrong way. I want them lengthways, going away from the fire. Got to be careful, this jacket is really flammable. It melted a few times at the bushcraft show. So I've got my water. Now by placing the sticks away from the fire, instead of placing them at the side of the fire, that blocks the heat from going underneath. If I place them at the side, it'll allow the heat to go under the kettle as well. I'm not going to put all my water in there, it'll take a lot longer to boil. I'll leave the handle flat as well, away from the fire. I've also brought with me some thick gloves. These aren't heat-proof gloves, but it'll mean that I'll be able to hold the kettle without burning my hands. Getting smoked out there a bit. This stuff is really bone dry, and this would have been fantastic if I had brought my son's folding stove out with us. Now, because this water is from home, from a tap, it doesn't have to be boiled. As long as it's nice and warm, that'll be good. Got a nice little jar of honey. I've got the blackcurrant juice in one of these little tiny pots. I brought my folding mug. I'm just trying to find it. I really hope I didn't put it on the side and leave it. No, I found it. So we've got that. Now the thing is with this super strength juice, you only really need a tiny little drop for about a pint of water. So I'd say if you use the small end of a medicine spoon and then halved it, that's about how much I've put in here. I was going to get a piece of pine and sharpen it, take some honey out and put it into my drink. But because the honey's been on my back, it's very, very runny, very warm. There we go. Keep bum shuffling up this bank because I'm going to slide off into the river. So with how many sticks I've got here, I think I've probably got twice as much, definitely twice as much than I need for a cup of tea. But once I've had my cup of tea, I can enjoy the small fire. I'd say it's a mild day today. I went to collect some rosemary willow herb, and Americans, you call it fireweed, but I could see over the top of the weed that the mosquitoes were swarming around, and I just thought, I'm not going in there. I've not brought my insect repellent with me, and I don't want to get bitten. Also watch the trousers as well. They're a nylon material, so just like this jacket, they'll go up quickly. Small fire like this, not much bigger than my kettle, is producing a lot of heat. In fact, I'm just going to move the kettle back slightly. The flames are quite high and I didn't want them to lean over the kettle and burn the top of the handle. Not quite sure, but I thought the kettle was just starting to steam a little. So, I've not brought the tool belt out with me today. I've not brought a Laplander. All I brought is my little Norwegian scout knife. I've re-sanded the handle and re-oiled the wood, and it looks really good. I left this on the table last night to let the heat soak the oil in a bit more rather than it being in the garage, and my family came home. My son picked up the knife. Instead of putting it into the sheath properly, he turned the blade round and shoved it into the sheath, and I was horrified. He's cut the inside of the sheath. I've had this knife a very long time, but many of those years it's been lost. Till recently moving house and then finding it. So now I have stropped it up. I have noticed yesterday there's a tiniest of kink in the blade, but I've stropped it up, and there is a bald patch on my arm now. So it's a beautiful little knife, and it's razor sharp. So this is what I'll be using a lot from now on. I still will use my other knife, my Koodman. The Koodman, I'm not a fan of batoning in. I believe there's a tool for the job. You know, an axe is for chopping, a knife is for cutting. And that's the way it's been for a long, long time. It's only recently when people think, apart from machetes, that, you know, a normal small knife has got to be able to chop and do all these things. But anyway, the Koodman, it's a full tang knife. There's only 3 holes in the tang, which I like. I don't like these knives which are riddled with holes, because it makes them weak. There's 2 other holes are for rivets, and 1 is for a lanyard. And I have used that knife. I wouldn't say I battened. I did, but I didn't. I tapped the blade. When I made the hazel fishing spears and I put the knife over the top, I just tapped down to split the hazel. I'm not really chopping with it. But I would never do that with this knife, because it'll only be a short tang. It's probably 3/4 into the handle, but it's a beautiful tool, and I think it was called the Scout knife because it's got the Scout's emblem on the sheath. I'll come forward and show you this in a minute, but it's you know, it'll do the job. It's a very thick blade. It's probably something like 4mm thick, 3 to 4mm thick, I'd guess. I'll come and give you a closer look while the kettle's getting ready. So you can see the Scout's emblem. It's beautiful coloured wood. It does say under there made in Norway, and it fits lovely into my hand, and I've got big hands. It's a very lovely knife. Plastic insert, and like I say, unfortunately my son shoved the knife in this way. It must have twisted somehow and only just fit, because I'm very surprised that the point of the blade didn't stick out through the sheath. I know he wanted to help, but because I was outside on a phone call to the local council about that footpath I've told you about. But he wanted to move it and make it safe, but I said Daddy would have moved it when he came in. But anyway, it looks like it's okay, it's survived. So my wife said, I did tell you not to do any work like this on the dining table, but yeah, little belt hoop on there, so I'll be able to wear that when I go out to my own permission and use this knife. This knife has also doubled in price. When I looked a couple of years ago, when I thought about buying another one because I lost this one, I believe this one was about 22 to 25 pounds, and I did buy my brother-in-law one as well because he's also hunts and prepares his own food. But now they've gone up to, I believe, about 45 to 47, something like that the last time I looked. We have hot water. The handle's not too bad actually. So I'll just put my finger down to hold the lid. This is going to be very, very nice. I'm going to enjoy this. Smells nice. You can see still got a lot of wood left, so I've probably grabbed enough to cook on. I might just get that going again so I can have a second drink and keep the water warm in the kettle. I know I could bring a flask out to a place like this, but it's not the same. Also, after I'm done, I'm right next to the water, I'll pour my water onto this, scatter the ash into the fire and bring some leaves back. Just checking we're still recording. I did put the 32 gig memory card in there, so we should be good. The old one would have cut out by now. A favourite tool of mine is when I go camping to get the fire going, as you guys who've camped with me know. I always have a blue plastic dinner plate with me, and that's really good for wafting the fire. Of course, there's different methods of blowing on the fire. Some people use these telescopic pipes. I have made one, but that's in my other rucksack. There's also a method where you pinch your fingers together and make a diamond and blow through your fingers. It channels the air a lot better towards the fire. As you've seen there, a couple of blows. Sometimes makes a whistle noise, but it gets it going again. At this point, I'd like to say thank you to the you subscribers who are still watching me right now. I don't have all the fancy statistics that some of the other bigger YouTubers have or know how to use, so I don't know who's actually watching all the way through. I do when I do a live recording, because it tells me you might have watched 2 or 3 minutes out of a 10-minute recording. But if you're still watching now, thank you very much. Thank you for staying with Simon Outdoors and enjoying my little fire and my cup of blackcurrant and honey tea. You could call it, you know, like a sweet pop or something like that, but that is really nice. Yeah, it has cooled down quite a lot, even though it's steaming. I could probably just drink this all in one go, it's so lovely. I can only just taste the honey in there, even though I put probably 5 times the amount of honey in, because the other blackcurrant juice is double the strength. Yeah, there's some nice spots at the side of this river that you'll see me doing a lot of videos, I hope. The public footpath is literally just there. You can probably see it behind me running there, but luckily it's a lovely quiet day. Probably more people have gone in a loop and gone back up the woods towards the village. I did put this ammunition pouch on the old rucksack. I was given this with the rucksack I think years ago, or another guy gave it me, and I cut these metal lugs off that were on the top and melted it so it don't fray, but it's fastened onto the webbing. I've carried different things in that pouch, from candles to a mallet that I made for using with some chisels that I now carry in there. So the next time I go to my commission, I'm going to make a log stool and mortise some legs in there with my mallet and chisels. Yeah, I've carried candles in there, but today in there, just pull this, I've got my spare water. The main reason is, one is for drinking, one is for putting the fire out. Getting smoke in the eyes there now.